Chris, what is going on, my dude? How are you?
Boston, I'm great, man. How are you?
Man, it's been a minute since you and I talked in real life or in any way, really, other than texting, right?
Way too long,
Yeah,
man.
way too
Way.
long. We've done a lot of shows together in the past, between Songbirds and Troubadours and live shows at different venues and things. I'm really excited to pick your brain tonight, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Pick away, my brother.
So it's all
Let's.
about Across Three Hills this week. That's the new song that's coming out in December, right?
Well, it's actually gonna hit in January. It's already out. Technically, it's part of the homebrew
The record,
record
right?
that came out in late June. But that's the one that we're trying to push to Americana radio, and it's getting some playlist action right now. I mean, I've noticed that a lot of people are really starting to, or the numbers are starting to go up on some of the streaming platforms. So that's cool. I just got picked up by was it called Death Songs and Dark Country playlist the other day. Like I keep getting these names of reports and things, and so really cool stuff I've been discovering.
That's going to be
So
exciting as a songwriter, right? When people out there are digging
it's
it.
great, man. Whenever you have something you're able to put out into the world and people respond to it, it's a great feeling. It's very validating and very blessed in that regard. So yeah,
We
it
featured
feels
a song of yours called "Moonshine Habit" over
yeah.
the summer, and man, I love that tune so much. And I was hoping to get to talk to you about it a little bit tonight, and I do want to do that before we get into more depth with Across Three Hills. Um,
Absolutely.
so "Moonshine Habit" was the first single off the record, right?
Yes, sir. Moonshine Habit was the first single, and with that one, actually, Boston, I put that one out. Just very little money spent on promoting it. Really, nothing aside from pressing up some CDs to send out to a few stations that still do that. Um, but I mean, it made the lower reaches on the Texas charts, and I tell you what, man, every show I play, somebody asks for that song, so that's a good sign. And people who haven't heard it, they seem to dig it. So enjoy responsibly or don't. That's your call.
So Chris has always kind of been my folk buddy, my Americana dude, and for a long time. And so I was excited to have you on the show because I'm going to feature not just Chris's new single tonight, which will be a single in December, going to radio in January, but obviously I'm going to try to keep the theme going throughout the whole broadcast tonight. We're going to feature a lot of Americana slash folk artists this week, including somebody that I found on TikTok, which is going to be interesting. I think you guys are going to like that. So what I try to do is I try to show the number one song in Texas. I try to bring a new artist that I found through TikTok, because TikTok and short form content is kind of the way to kind of be seen and heard nowadays. Have you been dabbling in that at all, Chris?
Man, that's something I'm still just kind of coming around to. To tell you the truth, I'm pretty lo-fi,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm getting more. How should I put it? Not an infrastructure behind me with that, but just people who know that kind of that world a little better. And so there'll be some TikTok content here pretty soon.
I think it's
Uh,
really interesting because, like, with a 3 minute story, which is essentially what a song is, you really have less than, what, 8 seconds to hook somebody into your song. Otherwise, they're just going to move on to the
Typically,
next
yes.
one. And I mean, essentially, that's what TikTok Reels, Shorts is all about, is those 8 second snippets. And you can become pretty damn famous with an 8 second snippet, which is crazy to think about where we come from, right?
Absolutely, and the cool thing about TikTok is, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of younger artists and who are of our time period, who are just putting fresh stuff out
Mm-hmm.
and really getting famous with it. But it's also allowed a lot of artists who've been sadly lost to the sands of time to experience something of a resurgence, like Eddie Noack, who was killer singer and songwriter from up around Rusk, and he played. Well, he did a bunch of singles, and he cut a Leon Payne song,
Mm-hmm.
"Psycho," that got kind of a resurgence with TikTok, and also the band, a little bit different genre, but Acid Bath, who I
Mm-hmm.
was always a big fan of. They're reuniting. They've reunited and they're start playing again next year. I think they've got a big TikTok resurgence now, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I hear things, I read things, and it's just not a world I'm part of yet. But crossing all things, knocking on wood, I'll be on there soon.
The
And I mean, I've got it.
algorithms are cool because like you shape your experience based on what you essentially stay and listen to. And so, like, if I stay and listen to a folk song by an indie artist, the algorithm is going to push me to 7 or 8 other videos that are essentially the same thing. And when you're a music fan, that's kind of a cool thing. You know what I mean?
It's a very cool thing, Chris. And I tell you what, again, not to tell too many tales out of school on myself, but I'm pretty lo-fi. I mean, I'm sitting here in my writing, my home office, which is, I record my songwriting demos. I do all my, all kinds of work in here, but it kind of boils down to I've got a keyboard over here. I've got a ukulele, a mandolin, a guitar. I've got pads of paper that I sit and actually write down these ideas. And I've got this computer I can record stuff on. But I'm really not that evolved technologically. So some of this stuff that everybody's been, for 10, 15 years, I'm kind of just getting fresh to. And YouTube has really been a big discovery conduit for me. My girlfriend got us a YouTube Premium, the gift that keeps on giving last Christmas. And man, I've enjoyed that thoroughly. I've discovered so much great music just.
Well, it's funny you say YouTube Premium, man. Once you have that, it's so addicting, bro. Like, it's amazing. Like, if you can't pay for it and you lose it for a month, by God, your life is so much different.
Withdrawals, man. You get the shakes.
And not just that, man, but like ads. Like, all of a sudden you're inundated with ads again. And that's the crazy thing about YouTube Premium. I love it.
I got a funny story about that, actually. We were... God, I think it wasn't. I was playing. I can't remember where it was I was playing now, but this has been a few months ago. But I usually use, between sets and stuff or before a show, like I'll run a playlist off of my computer, and something happened where I couldn't link my computer to my PA, so I was running off my iPhone. And it was logged out of the YouTube Premium, and had this playlist all set up, and I was able to access it. But in the middle of it, there's like a commercial for Cialis or something, and it was like an old like Bill Monroe song, and it just kind of broke the synergy of everything. Everybody's like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, man. Last week's show was the end of the month, man, and the money ran out before the month did, so we didn't have Premium. The Premium comes up for renewal about the 28th. My wife told me Monday, she's like, "You're not going to have Premium for Tunesday tomorrow night." And I was like, "Oh, damn. Well, that sucks." So we had to work our way through the ads last week. But I got to say, Sherry Little, who was the mom of last week's guest, actually sent us in a donation. We have Premium this week. We're good to go thanks to Sherry. So no ads tonight, guys. You guys will be really happy about that. Now, I met Chris in the Nacogdoches area, and I know that's where you're from originally. You still reside in that area as well, as far as I know, right?
Well, I actually live down in Colmanile, which is about an hour or so southeast of there in Tyler County. But however, I still spend a lot of my time in Nac, still play there a lot, and just mostly associated with Nacogdoches. So, and always probably will. I mean, that'll always be more or less home for me.
Yeah, and I've always gravitated towards like solo artists, the roots kind of music, just a guy or girl and their guitar, and that's who you are for the most part. So, what's it like solo gigging? Because I know you've solo gigged. I know you've done the band thing as well. Which do you like more, and why?
Man, it's hard to say. I mean, I enjoy, the solo thing is it's tough sometimes because if you're playing to a place, and the last gig I had was a solo gig, wonderful venue and great people there, this place out near Waco. But it was Black Friday, and so it wasn't a big turnout. So it's easy to kind of coast or go into autopilot on gigs like that where you don't get a big turnout. Now me, it's hard sometimes to remember to play for 3 people as if you were playing at 3,000. I'll admit it, but I typically if the crowd's bigger, I typically enjoy it more. And as a solo performer, I mean, even with 3 people or 300, I mean, it's sometimes it's a lot harder to hold that crowd's attention. Um, there are people who can do that really well, like Gabe Wooten, who is a great example of that.
Man,
Phenomenal entertainer and
frick, I
just a
love Gabe
brilliant.
Wooten so much, man.
It's incredible. But I just, I don't see myself as being anywhere in that league. I prefer playing with it like more of a song swap fashion.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tongue twister. Song swap fashion.
I love song swaps too, especially if it's original music coming from both. Like,
absolutely.
it's like those songwriter rounds kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah. I'm a lover of songs, and it's always the biggest thrill if you're in a round with somebody you've never played with before or never even heard before, and to hear one thing from their offerings, it just captivates you. I always really get off on that. But I mean, either song swaps or full band stuff, those are really my favorite ways to play. And with the solo thing, I can do it if I prepare myself enough. But it's just again, I feed off the crowd, and
there's a lot of responsibility there too when you're there's nowhere to hide when you're just up there with your guitar, you know what I mean?
That's very true.
It's like you remember that old scene from Forrest Gump when Jenny is playing on stage completely naked with nothing but a guitar. I feel like that's what it's got to be like all the time for a songwriter by themselves in a room with like 2 or 3 people paying attention. You know what I mean?
Man, I hadn't thought about that scene in Forrest Gump in years, but that's a really good analogy, actually. Old Jenny Curran up there naked as a jaybird, and that's a great wow.
Yep. You're definitely exposed that way. But anyway, let's talk about the songs. I know you wanted to talk about To a Sunset, which is kind of theatrically related to Across Three Hills. Tell us what that means.
Yeah, well, that's a long story, Chris. And to really get into that, let me go back to kind of when both of those songs were written and how they tie together. See, when I recorded the Homebrew album, the idea originally, I was going to record it here in my home office. I've got an old Tascam 4-track recorder, and it experienced some problems. I was just going to knock out 12 or 13 songs on it, guitar and vocal songs, and put out a record that way and just see if anybody gravitated to it. I was thinking, I could do like the hillbilly version of Springsteen's Nebraska, but also, a lot of these artists, like, Zach Bryan's a great example of this, or probably the most preeminent one, but also like Vincent Neil Emerson and Colter Wall too. Some of his early stuff was very crudely recorded. Mm-hmm. And so I was thinking, well, if I put out something that sounds really dusty, maybe not trying to make it sound any more authentic or whatever, but just, the fact that songs transcend limitations of recording.
I love how you call it dusty. That's so apt, man. I love that word. Yeah,
absolutely. And so anyway, problems happen with the Tascam setup. So my friend Grady, who is a wizard, I mean, Grady's just one of the greatest humans around. He's an incredible songwriter himself and got a great ear, and he's a great singer and guitar player. It has just a great studio full of all the best analog gear.
Is this the Grady from Old Omen?
No, I don't think Grady was in Old Omen. Grady's an old Nacogdoches musician.
Okay.
He's played in a lot of bands through the years. He's not really gigging with anybody now, but he's working on some projects, and he just moved to a different place, and so he's setting his studio back up. But Grady said, "Come on over and we'll track it here," and so we did. And I had an idea of the songs. Like with a change in venue, change in setup, like a different set of songs kind of rattled around my brain. I mean, some of the same stuff was on that I intended to originally, but the Across Three Hills song, that's the first thing that came out when we started tracking, and I just did it in one pass, guitar and vocals, sitting on a bar stool. And To a Sunset was the last one, and those two songs are linked because Across Three Hills, I wrote about my grandmother, or wrote for her when she was still alive. She had passed not too long after I had written that song, so I never actually got to play it for her. And To a Sunset, actually, she wrote that song. Well, she wrote a poem called To a Sunset when she was very young. She was a phenomenal poet when she was younger, and wrote quite a bit. And I had some notebooks and things of hers. And one night at this party in Nacogdoches, back in 2007, everything had died down, and I was probably the last guy standing. You know how those go. And so there was a piano in the living room, and so I just sat down at it and started playing. And I just, these three chords, I just kept playing over and over and over again and humming this melody over it. And by the time I finally made it back to my place later in the morning, I broke out my guitar and I'm playing those chords, and I had the melody in mind, and that poem was nearby. I was, you know, I think I had her poems on my coffee table, grabbed it, and it fit together so well. I mean, it was serendipity, man. And it's like the good Lord himself just handed it down. And I had played To a Sunset before, like I had done it a couple of times with my band back in the day, and just, you know, here and there, but it hadn't really been one of those songs I'd really played a lot. But I played it last year. I was playing a gig out in Lockhart, and it just kind of came. I was playing a song swap with my buddy Ethan Ford, and it just kind of was one of those things that came up, and I was like, wow, that I need to record that someday. And so we did. And I remember Grady saying on the song that it brought him mind of an old spooky haunted mining town. So yeah.
So where can people find this song? Is it on the record as well?
It is. All of these songs are on the Homebrew record, and it's available on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, wherever you get your music. And you know, the Across Three Hills single, when it's up available on there for download or stream, there'll be two songs on it. One of them's a new song. Not going to spill any secrets on that, but just stay tuned.
We're not allowed to talk about that yet. I'm apparently one of two people who know something, and I've been sworn to secrecy.
Well, actually, that's another matter. But the and that will, again, stay tuned, folks, because there's some things starting to bubble up a little bit, which I'm thankful for.
You deserve it, man. Truly do.
Man, I appreciate that. I thanks so much. It's very sweet of you to say that.
Of course.
And thanks again for having me on. But all of those, both of my records are available on Spotify and all those places. I put one out in 2011, the Winter Garden record.
Yep.
And about to do a physical pressing of that, just to have to sell at shows, as well as the Homebrew record. And I think the plan is next year. Me and the band did a release show in Nacogdoches this past summer, which was a lot of fun. But I think I'm going to do another, like a physical release show next spring at a venue in near Beaumont called the Seven Oaks. It's nice. a great song, listening room that my friend Courtney owns it, and it's just phenomenal.
It's funny you mentioned Beaumont. Our guest this week on the podcast is from Vidor, right next to Beaumont.
Oh wow!
So, yeah.
Who's your guest on the podcast?
Donis Morris.
Oh yeah. And WD-40 and duct tape, man.
Yeah. We're chatting with him tomorrow. So awesome. we're gonna play the song Across Three Hills. Anything else you want to add before we play the song and kick off our hour of music?
Well, Boston, I just want to say that kind of and it's really cool that you allow writers to come on and talk about their work and kind of gush about it and so forth.
Of course.
But with this song here, it's very special to me, and I'm glad that I got to a point in my life where I started playing it publicly again. I probably, whenever I'm doing a solo show or a song swap now, I probably play it 8 out of 10 shows in that fashion. And I never did before. Like after I wrote it, I played it at my grandmother's memorial, and then I played it twice. I played it once at a showcase in Nashville, and I played it once in Nacogdoches at a gig, and that was it. And it just, it seemed like it was time to put it out to the public, and it wound up being the first track on the album. It was actually the album is sequenced the way we recorded, or the order of songs, the way we tracked them. And like I said, it was originally going to be just a stripped down vocal and guitar thing, but Grady's sound, his setup's so good. He's got so many good microphones. And I'm like, well, this sounds big. Let me add a bass part here. Let me add some mandolin. Let me do this or that. And so before we knew it, we had a little more layering on it than, I mean, it still sounds stripped down and dusty.
I mean, the instrumentation on the record is phenomenal, dude. Like,
Oh,
it's
thanks.
just
I appreciate
phenomenal. Yeah, it's really good. I love
that.
that you can take us all over the place, from joy to heartbreak to grief and mourning and you know, drowning your sorrows. Like, you take us so many different places with the record. And
Man,
go ahead.
I greatly, and you've made my day, brother. And that's the thing about, records is you really want to take the listener on a journey. And I've already got the next record planned out. It's Homebrew, is still getting it's trying to get some of those songs out there and some things to happen with them. Was always meant to be a real stripped down affair. And, but the next one's going to be more about a full band sound and everything. But with Homebrew though, me and Grady actually played pretty much everything on the record, except for my friend Joel played some fiddle on a couple of songs, and another buddy who played steel guitar on a couple of things. Are just phenomenal musicians. And that's one thing I've always been blessed with, is being around, really good musicians, and that can really make your stuff come alive. But I forgot where I was. Oh yeah, I remember where I was going with this now. So
My bad.
When I put the record out, or when it came out to the, on the interwebs and everything, buddy of mine, Casey Sizemore, who's a phenomenal talent and a lover of good songs too. Casey and his band, the Piney Rats, they played that show with us back in June. And at the after party, he came up to me, and, we were all passing around guitars and just having a good time. He comes up to me, and I think my girlfriend was pouring me a drink at the time. And he says, "Hey man, can you play Across Three Hills?" I was like, "Sure." And he just, the fervency by which he loved that song, it said something to me that I needed to do something with it. And other people had responded positively to it as well. I've had people that have come up to me who have also, lost a loved one, that, or a friend that's very influential to them. And it really struck a chord. So if you can do that as a songwriter, I think your work is done.
Yeah,
so
that's called validation, man. That's called validation.
Very much so.
Yeah,
yes.
and sometimes that's all the success you need as a songwriter, is that validation, especially with a, just a song that is so dang vulnerable that you probably really, there's a lot of soul searching prior to deciding whether to share that with other ears. I'm sure there is, and I'm glad you did, man. This is a great tune, and I think it does your grandmother proud, even though she hasn't heard it. And I think you know that already, right?
I appreciate that, man. I really do, because, I hope that it kind of captured an essence of just kind of the relationship we had. She was a phenomenal woman. She was really hip and just really great, just very smart, and just a good old country gal who just this phenomenal person.
And now she's immortalized in song thanks to you, man. So
her and my grandfather both, man, were just top shelf people, and both hugely influential to who I am and what I do today. And I really got from my grandfather the more musical side of the equation, but my grandmother was a great lover of literature and writing, and really turned me on to some great writing when I was young. And the song, kind of the I guess the linchpin idea of it is, when we would take day trips, there was this particular point. It's actually a few miles north of where I live now, that you can see clear across three hills in one direction. And it always reminded her of, there was a waltz that was out when she was a girl. And I think she had the 78 of it at one time, called Across Three Hills. And I'm blanking on who it was that did that, but it always reminded her of that song, and she would always reference it. And so, I don't think the title was exactly Across Three Hills. It might have been, it was something similar to that.
Was it Over Three Hills?
Over Three. Yes, you got it, man.
It was Tex Beneke and his orchestra.
Okay. Yeah. That
Rex Allen also did a cover of it.
Oh, actually, she had the Rex Allen version. I do remember that, because I did have several of her 78s. I still do. But
1949 original recording.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The internet is
Cheers, man.
good. We're excited to play the song, Chris. I appreciate you coming on.
My
Anytime you want to
pleasure.
come back on, man, we got your back. So anytime you got new music, let us know. And
Will do, brother.
our
Will do.
platform is your platform. I appreciate you, man. We're going to get into the music, guys, starting with my man, Chris Edwards, and Across Three Hills. Y'all check it out.